year, our budget is based on these three things. Now, but the first thing to look at is, just look at the production numbers. In reality, how many of the years have we actually been able to achieve and sustain the 2.3? We still have restiveness in the Niger Delta. We have infrastructure that's supposed to have been put in place that wasn't put in place. Investment has been dampened because of what's generally happening in that sector. Then you now have the benchmark oil price at 45. Depending on how you look at it, of late we've noticed that the international price benchmark prices have generally been over 60 recently. We can reasonably expect it to be probably in the 50s, going forward over the next 6 months. But as we all know, there's a whole lot of volatility in the oil and gas market.
And we have shut down our excess crude account.
Recent developments in the Middle East in the last couple of days are actually very worrying. What's happening with Lebanon, Iran, and Saudi Arabia on the other side. We don't know how it's going to pan out. I saw a piece of news that the French president had to do an emergency trip to Lebanon yesterday to try and forestall this getting out of hand. If anything happens in that space, that can easily change whatever it is that we're expecting especially on the benchmark.
It affected the prices positively.
Oh yes, even the MBS said it, that the reason why we grew marginally at the end of the second quarter was likely because the oil prices gradually crept back up, to 47s, high 40s, and early 60s. Yes. So that definitely is good for us on a temporary basis. Like the gentleman in Abuja just said, the real solution that we need to do.
Hold on with that real solution. Let's go on the quick. We'll come back. Give us the real solution. Don't go away. Welcome back. Our closing moments on this look at the 2018 budget proposal. Mr. Alaufin, you were giving us the correct solution.
Okay, what I was about to say is that in our current situation now, we have to get to a point where we become real with the numbers that we release every year. And real in the sense that if you have a headline position that you want to diversify the economy, what one would expect was that whatever you are going to have as your basis or your assumptions for your budget, a lot of it will go towards what we're expecting on the diversified side. Now, everything that you still have still speaks to oil the way it always spoke to oil, the past period. So the real question is, where is the diversification that we're talking about? We all know that the best time for Nigeria to have diversified its economy is probably 20, 30 years ago. But like they say, if you missed planting a tree 20 years ago, today is the best day today. Okay. So that means it's something we need to do, and it would have drastic effect, but it's got to be done.
Mr. Fasua and Mr. Boyo, in 10 seconds each, speak to this. We have every state in this country has solid minerals, and the Ministry of Solid Minerals has continued to talk about how much they are trying to get licensing and all of that. And then some of these people, there are rumors out there and stories in the media of how some of these minerals are mined illegally and taken out of the country, like gold and all of that, a lot of it. So speak to this. How can we mine these resources and use it to bolster our budget in 2018? Mr. Fasua.
Well, the point is that the biggest resource we have is actually our human resource. Take it from me. I mean, if you go and Google or find out the biggest companies in the world, you find companies like Amazon, like Google, like Microsoft, like Facebook. These are companies of the brain. And we have youth here, we have young people, we have old people who can think, and we should, that's what we should work on. You don't diversify an economy. The government talks about diversifying their income sources. Right, but that's when they talk about solid mineral. When you diversify an economy, the economy begins to depend on itself. Therefore, you look in the pockets of people. What do they spend their money on? We don't spend money every month on solid minerals as citizens. So everything we spend money on, the government has to ensure they block it so that the money stays within the family while we continue to play the globalization game. I would say, in a nutshell, government hasn't started to dream in this country. We should be talking of 20 trillion naira budget, not 8 trillion. But yeah, okay, the Buhari government is trying in leaps and fits and starts to move up from the 4 trillion cycle to about 8 trillion now. But we should be talking of 20-25 trillion, because it is unacceptable for countries like Angola to be budgeting $44 billion. Dollar is a dollar anywhere, and we are talking about $25 billion for 180 million people. It is a sin against humanity.
Mr. Boyer.
I always find it very difficult to discuss the budget because, as I said earlier, undue emphasis is placed on the budget when in fact we should be talking about how to diversify the economy. The budget will not diversify the economy, even if it says so every time. The issues are very clear. If we do not create the enabling environment that would make it possible for people to continue to spend money, I mean real money, not every time 50% leaves your income. If you don't create that environment where people are able to go to the banks and borrow at 5 or 6%, if you don't create that situation where the banks make all their money or most of their money from treasury bills and foreign exchange, if you don't remove all that, you are going to have problems. But probably much more worrisome is the fact that in the area of education, as Tokwe has said, the UN recommendations for something like 26% of your income to be spent on education. In this particular budget, I think it's only about 5 or 6% or thereabouts, 7% or thereabouts. So really, we can't be taken seriously if we make favorable noises about diversification and growth, and yet we don't take care of the educational needs of our youths. We spend more time in accumulating debts that these youths are going to pay. I want to ask you one question. Why is it that we are borrowing $3 billion, for example, when the central bank is sitting on $32 billion, which it liberally allocates to bureau de change at no interest and all that? I would, please, if anybody can find an answer to that, I would be very, very glad to learn. Sometimes, you know, we're not all very clever, so
we'll let you know if we get any tweets.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Mr. Tokwe, an economist, Henry Boyo and Victor Alaufin. We're here in our Lagos studios, and Tokwe was in our Abuja studio. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts with us. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please don't go away.